Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me for yet another trip around the wheel of the year. Welcome in. Welcome in. Please say hi in chat. If you have been here before, put some grapes in the chat. If this is the first time that you have watched one of these classes or the first time that you are joining us for a MABON class, throw some apples in the chat. Let's get it, cornucopia up in here. We will get started in mere moments. Um, there's stuff I'm supposed to be saying right now, and I always forget, like literally every time. Yay, grapes! Come on, grapes! We will get started with the actual class proper in just a moment. Want to give everybody a chance to get in and join the stream. Um, Yay! Mabon is pretty good. Mabon is a pretty good Sabbath. I'm biased. I definitely love the end of summer and the beginning of fall. I am a huge fan. Yeah, look at all the grapes. Look at the apples. What's up, Fagin? Hi, Jen. Hi, Purple Table Tarot. Incognito. um, if you have not already, please like this video. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube. Um, I won't mention that stuff too many times while we're here. Seriously, come on, Mercury and Venus, out of retrograde. Get the fuck away from me, respectfully. Yes. Although, I will say, knock on wood, this Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde did not kick my butt too hard. Shocker, and I'm certainly not asking for anything to change. Let me be extremely clear. It was terrible. Please, no more. It wasn't so bad this time, which means they're probably just saving up for the next one. um, please and thank you as we go through the preamble for this class. Um, feel free to make yourself at home, make yourself comfy, get cozy, um, grab something to drink, something to snack on. You might grab a journal. You might grab your natal chart. You might grab some tarot. Um, might light a candle, light some incense, make a moment of it all. Or put this on in the background while you're cooking dinner or cooking breakfast. Or, I don't know what time zone you're watching this from. Hello to all my friends in Malta. Um, I wish. I wish I knew people in Malta. But you know how best you learn, so make it right for you. And let's get into it, right? We know what's going on. Let's get into it. Hello, I'm Megan Angus, and this is Mabon, a witch's guide, or a 6-week guide, or a heathen's guide to Fall Equinox. I've called it so many different things over the years. I am what they call an eclectic witch, definitely entrenched in modern paganism, but also a lot of ancient stuff too. And self-taught, so, qualify me as a lady yelling on the internet about stuff. Double check my references. I do make mistakes every now and then. But this is a big passion project for me. I've been teaching these classes publicly since 2015, and I absolutely delight in revealing the connection between religion and science. I am a big proponent of the idea that our ancient ancestors were incredible scientists and incredible storytellers, as well as deeply spiritual and philosophical beings, as well as just plain old folks trying to get by in the world. And when we miss out on the science in our religion, when we miss out on the religion in our science, especially when we're talking about these pagan traditions and looking backwards into time, I think we miss out on a big piece of the story. We miss out on a big piece of the symbolism and the myth. So that's a lot of what I'm doing in these classes. Big big fan of this concept. Um, I did come up several decades ago because I am thousands of years old. Yay, Gen X! What's up? We're still alive. You haven't killed us all off yet. And so some of my language is antiquarian, and I apologize in advance. I am actively learning and reprogramming as I go. And so I do default to old language every now and then, and I really am trying to grow and learn and evolve, and always am grateful for folks who take the time to correct me and point me in the right direction. That said, when we are talking about goddesses in this class, there's a lot of stuff added to that word. And what I'm speaking to is that essence that is in all beings that has the capacity to gestate, to nurture, to create, to world build, to protect, to foster, all of that stuff. And we see gods and goddesses of all genders do that stuff, but I think, especially in modern paganism, there's a default to thinking of only goddesses as being in charge of that stuff. But those are activities that all humans can participate in. And on the other side, when we talk about gods, there's a lot of things that are masculine that are attached to gods, but gods represent that element that is in all of us, that thrusts, that is extroverted, that is pioneering, that is excited to go and get the thing or try out the new thing or whatever. And those are qualities that all humans can possess. As well, we see those qualities in deities of all genders too. So, we want to be thinking progressively with our work here and not limiting our deities to archaic definitions. Words. I mean, come on. As well, I find that being more open-minded when we approach these topics of things like gender and gender politics and gender identity versus the gods and goddesses or spirituality, and we begin to have a more open-minded approach to those things, we also allow our ancestors to come forward in their most authentic forms. Our ancestors experienced similar, same, worse, different but still bad types of oppression and stereotypes and judgment and things like that that we experience today. And so this is an opportunity for us to show our ancestors who might be reaching out to us from other times and other dimensions, other states of being, that we fully accept them in their authentic form, right? We're saying hi to all of them too by being as open-minded as we can about that stuff. Okay. This class is being taught from Seattle, Washington, which is unceded ancestral Duwamish territory. The Duwamish are still fighting for federal recognition from the federal government to be recognized as a real tribe, which is wild because Seattle is literally named after a member of their tribe, but apparently they're not real. They don't exist. So there is a change.org petition. We talk about it at every class. Gonna keep talking about it until they get it. Please head over to the change.org petition and sign that to encourage the federal government to grant federal recognition to the Duwamish tribe. It means that Seattle will have to pay rent. Yeah, one of the richest cities in the country. I think we could probably figure it out. And on that note, Real Rent Duwamish is a nonprofit that has been established here in the Puget Sound area for folks to make one-time or recurrent donations to Real Rent Duwamish. And that's a group of folks that just gather up that money and they hand it over to the Duwamish tribe to do with whatever they want to with it. And that money all goes into the Duwamish community to support their efforts, their growth, their healing, their activities, all of that good stuff. So if you are here in the Puget Sound area, I highly recommend that you check out that nonprofit and throw some dollars at them. And if you are not from the Puget Sound area, I guarantee there is a local tribe where you live. There are indigenous people wherever it is that you live, if you are here in North America, who were stewards of the land before folks that look like you and I ever showed up. Um, and those folks need that type of support too. Check them out, get involved with their groups, throw them a little bit of money as a way of saying thank you to the people who took care of Mama Earth before you showed up, witch. Are we doing magic here or are we doing magic? Like, what's going on? Are we screwing around or are we going to do some witchcraft? Let's go. Money is one of the most potent magics in our world right now. I don't like that, but it's true. So, let's play that card if we have it in our hand. And on the note of money, thanks to all of my patrons who make it possible for me to teach these classes for free. You guys are out of control, completely ridiculous, total freaks. I don't know what I don't know what you want from me, honestly, anymore. It's unsettling at this point. It's weird. I'm a few patrons away from hitting 100 patrons, which is very exciting, very wild, pretty it freaks me out. I'll be very honest, it really freaks me out. But because of the incredibly generous support of my patrons, I am able to teach these classes for free. If you love this work, please join my Patreon. You can join for as little as $1 to just throw $1 in my tip jar and say thanks for this work. For folks that join at the Mercury level, which is $5 a month and higher, you will get the notes for each week's podcast. I have a podcast called Spinning the Wheel Podcast. If you're not familiar, check it out. I'm on all major platforms. Folks that subscribe to my Patreon at the Venus level and higher, that's $9 a month and higher, get access to the workbook that I will be referring to for this class, as well as the multi-week calendar that we will be referring to for this class, digital altars, digital spells, playlists, the slides from the classes, a recording of the class, and whatever else I feel like throwing in the bag. And folks who subscribe at the Sun level and higher every month, that's $23 a month and up from there, get sessions with me. One-on-one sessions to work through the material of the wheel. We can look at your monthly transits. We can pull tarot for you, whatever you want to do. So thank you to my patrons. We also offer a once a month, more or less, community building get together called Tarot Circle. This month it's going to be right at the end of September. I think September 28th, 29th. It's a Thursday. I keep getting it wrong. Somebody here knows what the date is, and it's today. It's not me, but we'll get it sorted out. And Tarot Circle is free for everyone who is subscribed to my Patreon, and we talk about tarot mostly every month. Sometimes we do community readings, sometimes it's a hardcore lecture, and stuff. So come and join us. We're doing all kinds of weird shit over there. Thursday, thank you, Fagin. Please join us over at Patreon. We're doing all kinds of weird stuff, and it's fun, and it's wacky, and we're doing stuff. We're doing some stuff over there. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And with that, let's get into the class. Let's talk about Mabon. So this is our wheel for Mabon. These were designed for me several years ago by my good friend Ryan Jack Allred. And he is an amazing illustrator here in the Seattle area, and if you hit him up, he might draw something for you. So go ahead and do that. Question in the chat. How do you get the workbook? I'm a Venus subscriber. I don't see a link for the workbook. Okay, so when you join, you should get a welcome message from me in Patreon, and it should have a link in it that connects you to a Dropbox. That said, I may have changed that, and I apologize in advance if that is not true. I will be uploading a address for a new Dropbox, for a new folder, for all of our different levels on Patreon. Maybe tonight, probably tomorrow, with the class that we're doing tonight and all of the extra stuff. So I'm a little behind on that. I apologize. It does happen. But it's coming. I swear it's coming. Okay, so this is our wheel, and as you can see, we have just left Lunasod. We are at Mabon. Samhain is ahead of us on the wheel. And I love working with graphics like this because it really kind of orients us in time and space in terms of like, where we are, what we're doing, and where we're headed. So, what are we doing? Where are we headed? Well, we are headed into fall. We're headed into Mabon season. Fall Equinox season, as I think of it. And this is our Sabbath sign for the season. These signs were, as far as I can tell, big asterisk in the corner here. As far as I can tell, these symbols were created sometime in the last 100 years by modern pagans to be in alignment with the Sabbats. I still, after all these years of working with this, I still have not discovered who was the person or the collective who came up with these symbols. Are they older than 100 years? I don't think so, but they might be. But I don't think so. And I love them because you really can see a lot of stuff in this. In previous classes, and Queen of Tangents, here we go. As an aside, folks who have worked with me every year, or for the last several years, know this to be true. Every year we kind of have a new iteration or something different comes through about the Sabbath. There is so much material to focus on. There are so many different traditions and holidays and deities and practices. We can only get to some of it. And in my studying, stuff appears. It's sort of like, hey, talk about me. And in the past, I have looked at this symbol and thought about it as heads of grain and even like heads of corn sort of dipped over, hanging over with this abundant head of grain. But yesterday, while I was focusing on this symbol and just thinking about it, I suddenly saw it as the Aries symbol across the top, which I have mentioned in previous classes, and the equal armed cross of manifestation below, which I have also mentioned in previous classes. The equal armed cross of manifestation is not the same as the Christian cross. It is a magical symbol and a cultural symbol, honestly, that we see all over the place and throughout time. This is all over, northern and southern hemisphere, going back 10,000 years plus. Humans have been utilizing this symbol for a very, very long time. And for a lot of folks, it has meant manifestation, a production of a thing, and the appearance of the thing on the physical plane. We see this symbol in astrology, chemistry, alchemy, etc., etc. And so looking at this and thinking about it yesterday, what I saw was Aries manifested. In other words, Mabon season, fall equinox, is the promise brought to us in spring manifested here. It has finally arrived. So whatever it is that has been promised to us in spring and Ostara season, because of course that season kicks off spring and is at spring equinox on the opposite side of the wheel from where we are now. That thing, the manifestation of the promise of spring. Just another way of working with this symbol. Total conjecture on my part, just riffing. Honestly, just riffing. This is where I'm saying I'm a lady on the internet yelling about things. Check my references. But this is what I love about these symbols, is that as far as I can tell, we don't know exactly what they're meant to mean. We know that they're connected to a Sabbath, but that's all. We don't know who created them. And so we get to play with them as a magical symbol and ask them, what do you mean? And how would you like to work with me for this materia? That stuff. Cool stuff. So, oh, there we go. My slides are a little out of order. Whatever. It's chaos. I don't care. We're in the remnants of the Mercury retrograde. That's what's up. Fagin, exactly. Ram's heads and crossroads. And you know what? The equal armed cross symbol is something that we work with at Ostara season also. Ostara and to a lesser extent Beltane with our hot cross buns that have that equal armed cross on top of them. And again, during Aries season, during Ram season, all of that good stuff. Okay, so here is the big work that we are approaching as we step into Mabon season. Remember, we're not just going from one Sabbath to another. We're not just going from one sign to another. We are leaving behind the season of summer and we are stepping into a new portion of the wheel. We're stepping into autumn or fall. Different names depending on where you are around the planet. And that is a big shift for us energetically, psychologically, emotionally, biologically. It's a big shift for us. It's a shift for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. And again, we experience the same phenomenon just in the opposite order or going the other way in the Southern Hemisphere. So they're going through a shift right now, too. They're leaving winter. Well, they're leaving spring and heading into summer. We're leaving summer and heading into fall. But we are at this threshold. We're at a precipice. We are at a doorway or a crossroad of a type. Haha. And so our big work that we're being asked to do here that's in our face is all about the harvest. One of the other names of this holiday, as we'll talk about in just a second, is the second harvest. Lunasa is the first harvest, Mabon second, and Samhain the third harvest. This is also the grain harvest, the fruit and veg harvest, and the blood harvest. Woo, whittly, whittly. Okay, focus. And so here at Mabon, we are hitting the high point of the harvest season. This is the sweet spot. This is where Earth just goes all out and is pumping out veg and fruit and nuts and grains and just everything under the sun that you can think of. The Earth is like, here, have some more, have some more, have some more. And so the big work directly in front of us is harvesting. Now, what if you don't live on a farm? You've done stuff this year. This is a moment for you to account for what all you have done this year. You don't need to have a giant basket of apples in the middle of your kitchen. You might, but you don't need to. You don't need to have a pile of worldly, earthy, material plane results. You might, but you don't have to. But all of us have done stuff this year. And Mabon season is a moment to account for that, to take time and reflect and look back over the last whatever portion of time. If you want to think back to spring, if you want to think back to January 1st, if you want to think back all the way to last Mabon season 12 months ago, whatever, that's fine. Whatever your time frame is that you'd like to work with. But this is a moment to account. This is a moment to take into consideration all that we have done. And I want to pause here for a moment because this is a place where we can get real down on ourselves. We can think in this moment, oh man, I've got an overdue bill. I got nothing in the savings account. I tried to start 3 different projects this year and none of them panned out. I've got that unfinished thing over in the corner staring at me. I never sent that email back to so-and-so, right? This could be a moment where all we notice are the loose ends and the things that didn't pan out and the projects that seem like they didn't come to fruition. And that's fair because as humans, we tend to look for the bad news. But I want you to think about every bill that you paid on time. I want you to think about every time that you successfully parented yourself towards behaviors that benefited you in the long term instead of the short term. I want you to think about every time you resisted calling a toxic ex. I wouldn't know anything about that, just off the top of my head. I want you to think about every time that you resisted negative talk. Those also are results from your hard work. Okay, witches? Very important to understand this. We can get super duper focused in Mabon season on the idea that there needs to be a giant cornucopia spilling out a huge pile of gold coins and fruit and meat and all of this other worldly stuff, riches and castles and all of this. No. The point of Mabon season, in my opinion, is one, to witness the incredible harvest that the earth is providing us in the real world. If you live in a city and you can get outside of the city, take a car trip or road trip with some friends or whatever, go to a local farm, just walk around, get your shoes muddy, smell the pig shit. But even better, buy some stuff from those local farmers, witness the work that they have put in to create that food and to bring it in. Go berry picking. Excellent stuff, especially if you have invasive berries, like invasive blackberries in your area. Go to places where it's safe to pick and pick them. Pick them all. Pick them all. But yes, so on one hand, we do want to witness the abundance of planet Earth. But on the other hand, we want to take a moment to witness how much hard work we have put in this life, as well as in this season. And that hard work may have only resulted in you keeping your head above water, which you're still here. Good job. And if you've done more than just keep your head above water, cool, awesome, good for you. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way, although it sounded really sarcastic when I just said it. Good for you. That's not what I mean. I mean literally, good for you. Witch. It's witch vibes. We just can't help but be sassy, like even when we don't mean it. So, harvest, big element of this season. We think back through the various traditions of pagan cultures over time, and the crying of the neck is a key element, a key focus of some pagan traditions that were societies that grew grains. So we talk about the grain harvest a lot during Lunasa season, but obviously it's coming to an end now. And so the remnants of it, or the closing down of that portion of the work, happens now. And that is ritualized in something called the crying of the neck. Now, to be the harvester that engaged in this in various traditions, some folks thought it was bad luck. Some folks thought it was good luck to be picked. The picking takes place and takes form in a bunch of different ways. Sometimes it's the youngest person involved in the harvest. Sometimes it's the oldest person involved in the harvest. Sometimes it's the landowner, if that is a different person for whatever reason. However the person is picked, they are picked and they are sent out into the field to harvest, to cut the last stalk of grain, the last bunch of grains. And they are, thrown up into the sky and waved around. They point it to the east first and they point it to the west. Lots of like, even these cultures that don't exactly know what they're doing, it's like you guys are doing the paganisms. That's what that is. And the crowd that's watching is like, do you have it, and the person that's got it is like, yeah, I got him. And this is John Barleycorn. This is the spirit of the harvest that has now been cut and captured, and is going to be rent asunder and torn up into a bunch of pieces, as we do with our vegetation gods. So, harvest, big deal at this time of year. And then we have these other words here: health, purification, balance, and transition. Now, the health and purification part is multifold. One part of this is just a recouping of our energy, a healing after that really intense work and the intense work that's happening. for a lot of modern pagans, what is happening right now is that this is literally the version of the goddess that we call the mother producing all of this stuff, delivering this massive baby. What I think is very interesting, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, is how many floods we have at this time of year, how many major storms we have at this time of year, like water breaking before we have a baby. Just a lady on the internet yelling about stuff. Don't worry about me. And, sending energy and blessings and protection out to the folks around the world that are suffering under incredibly terrible floods all over the planet from this week. Like, really hardcore stuff. But here we are, right? Reaping the results of our efforts. That too. And so there is a moment here of peace. There's a moment of rest. After bringing in the bulk of the harvest, metaphorically or literally, we're taking a moment to heal the body. We're taking a moment to rest. Yemoya, absolutely. Yemoya has big festivals at this time of year. Profoundly important water goddess from our Yoruba land peoples all over the planet. We talk about her a bit more during Lunasa season because her biggest holiday is September 7th. So technically speaking, her celebrations fall, Yemoya and Oshun, their festivals fall right at the end of Lunasa season. But again, it's sort of that welcoming in of Mabon season, that opening up of the season. So resting, recuperation, all of that good stuff. And then purification. Purification both as a part of our healing to end and take off the work and be like, whoop, I'm done with that. Thank you. Purification also because we are leaving summer and stepping into fall. And so we are also making sure that we are leaving behind the energies and the effects and the elements of summertime. We're done with that portion of the wheel. Time to move into the next portion. And so as we do that move, as we make that move, balance and transition, right? We are transitioning. We are changing shape. We are shifting forms. We are shedding skins at this time of year. And we are leaving behind who and what and how we are in the high part of the year, in the bright part, the sunny, hot part of the year. And we are moving into who and how and what we are in the dark part of the year, the colder part, the more insular part, the lunar part, you might even say, of the year. And so that's, the transition that we're moving through. And as we cross that threshold, we experience this really incredible moment of balance, where we have a foot in both worlds, a foot in the light, foot in the dark, foot in the world of the living, world of the dead, a foot in what has happened, a foot in what is yet to come. All of that type of stuff, like sitting on the fulcrum, sitting in the midst of the paradox and and the dichotomy. Mabon season gives us an opportunity to sit in that very liminal space. And as magical workers, as witches and wizards, the liminal spaces, that's our bread and butter. That's where we do stuff, right? So not only is this a liminal space that we can sense, that we can feel, that we can imagine to be there, that we can interpret in symbols, but we have an actual astronomical event that is supporting us literally being at the threshold of one season to the other and standing in that moment of balance of equal light and equal dark. And then we tip over into the dark. And so, getting a little more granular. Those are other names. Do I have the other slide? I don't know if I do. No, I don't. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Like I said, some remnants of Mercury retrograde. But ultimately, this is an opportunity for us to experience quite a trippy, magical little moment. And we get this multiple times a year. We get this here at Fall Equinox. We'll get it again at spring equinox, but it's a different vibe, right? Because we're tipping from the dark into the light there. Here we're tipping from the light into the dark. And then at winter solstice and summer solstice, we're also going to have an extreme moment of deep darkness or deep brightness. But these are astronomical events that are offering us these magical liminal spaces. It's just really cool reinforcement from the universe. Like, you better do some magic or else. Okay, so other names for this holiday, which is Thanksgiving, fruit harvest. I think that those are fairly straightforward. I hope that they're fairly straightforward. Then Mab is another name for this, and that is absolutely Queen Mab, and also connected to the deity Mabon ap Modron, which is where this holiday actually gets its name. So, important for me to note that the Wheel of the Year, in its most modern form, with 8 pieces that are relatively evenly spread out throughout the year, this is a very modern pagan tradition. A witch named Aidan Kelly, working in collusion with Starhawk. If you're not familiar with Aidan Kelly or Starhawk, highly recommend checking out their work. Very, very influential witches, especially for North American witches. Aidan basically came up with the modern concept of the Wheel of the Year and assigned these 8 holidays to it. When we look back through time and we consider the various cultures that we might describe as pagans, no one except modern pagans practices all 8 of the holidays. Everybody else did a smaller number. 6, 4, 3, 2 is what you generally see. The Celtics, and that's a word that we don't have time to get into, but it means kind of nothing in a way, and then it also means it's very specific peoples. The ancient Celts celebrated 2 Sabbats. They celebrated Beltane and they celebrated Samhain, and that was it. They didn't even bother with the other ones. The Norse folk as well, very, very similar. They have something called Summer's Finding that happens in April, and they have Winter's Finding, which happens around this time. That was it. That was it for them. They're like, we're good. We don't need to mess with anything else. And there are other smaller rituals and celebrations that are observed, but they're not. They don't carry the same weight as the Sabbats. So, Mabon or Mabon, we in America here often pronounce this Mabon, but the word is correctly pronounced Mabon. Is one of the Sabbats that is a modern invention-ish. And so what I mean by that is what we have now, if you go to a bookstore and you buy a few books or you look through a few books that talk about the Wheel of the Year and you look at the similarities between all of them, the stuff that you're going to read about Mabon, a lot of that is actually cobbled together from stuff from Lunason, other things happening around this time of the year, and stuff from Samhain. And it's a created holiday, but to be very technical about it, all holidays are created. And I think that it's a really cool reminder to us, one, that this practice is a living entity and we get to participate in its creation and its evolution. That's really cool. And 2, it's a reminder, don't hold on too tight to things that you've been told are a tradition or historically accurate or, like, you can't argue about this. This is the one and only way to do it. No. Especially when it comes to modern paganism, there's a lot of hodgepodge. There's a lot of patchwork quilt approach to what it is that we're studying and talking about. And so Mabon is a perfect example of a holiday that is a collection of a bunch of other traditions for us to celebrate now in the modern era at Fall Equinox. I know that there are going to be some witches out there that are like, burp, 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 but again, check my references. So, Ishtar's Day. This is a connection to uh, Damuzi's rise and fall, or Tammuz's rise and fall. The death of Damuzi and Tammuz happened at this time of year as the vegetation gods of Sumeria and Babylon. Um, Ishtar, of course, the goddess consort of them, and she is having a great time at this time of year. Michaelmas is another major holiday that happens for our Catholic friends and ancestors around the planet, and a lot of pagan Catholic folk. And Michaelmas is quietly a big deal, and it is for within the last 1500 years or so. This was actually the holiday that we were celebrating at this time of year, with lots of pagan influence and lots of pagan cultural tradition around harvesting stuff and making, corn people and all of that stuff. But Michaelmas, definitely a big deal. And yes, this is in reference to the archangel Michael, or Michael, overseeing this portion of the wheel in this portion of the year. Dosinki from our Slavic friends. This is an end of harvest festival. Heleg Monath, as well as Alban Ephred. These are both Druidic names for this holiday. And this is also an interesting connection between the past and the present, because a majority of what we call Druidic practice now is relatively modern stuff. The majority of what Druids were doing 2,000 years ago or before, erased. We don't have that stuff. It was destroyed. We don't have much at all in the way of historical documentation about what those folks were doing a long time ago. So a lot of the Druidic festivals and celebrations and observances are recreations out of what people have been able to cobble together. And then Gwyl Canol Hydrif and Main from are both Welsh names for this holiday. Again, referencing the harvest and bringing in all of that energy. So when we glance around the planet, what else do we see? We see a lot of traditions from the past and a lot of traditions from the present, other living religions that are around the planet right now, doing things that are very, very similar. We have here, there we go, like my notes, here we go. So things that are happening in other places in basically the same time as the fall equinox. So I'm thinking from approximately September 18th to September 24th. The sun can pass through that equal night day thing at any time during that time. We have Koyarena from our Incan friends and ancestors. We have Dojinki from our Slavic friends and ancestors, which I just mentioned, the death of Tammuz. Babylonian friends and ancestors, the day of Obatala from our Santeria and Yorubaland friends and ancestors, the death of Tiamat from our Sumerian friends and ancestors. And then other holy days that are happening around this time of year, somewhere within the end of September or the majority of October. We have things like Michaelmas, as we talked about from our Catholic friends and ancestors, the Feast of Bacchus from our Roman friends and ancestors. Durga Puja often falls during this time period from our Hindu friends and ancestors. We have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot all take place in a big, long festival complex, always around this time of year for our Jewish friends and ancestors. We just had Rosh Hashanah, so we've got Yom Kippur and Sukkot in front of us. Wima Kawari from our Iroquois friends and ancestors. This is a squash harvest festival. And then from our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors, we have the underworld journey of Osiris. And again, from our Babylonian and Sumerian friends and ancestors, we have the underworld journey of Inanna or Ishtar. And so, again, looking throughout the planet, throughout September and October, harvest festivals, all of this deep emphasis on abundance. The Harvest Moon Festival of Chang'o from our Chinese friends and ancestors. And then We've got our ocean worship, as we mentioned, with Yemoya. We have a lot of ancestor worship at this time of year. Interestingly enough, let me see if I have it on the next slide. Oh, there we go. We'll talk about this in just a second. But we have just an incredible amount of meteor showers at this time of year. We have multiple groups of meteor showers stacked on top of each other. And anytime we have a bunch of meteor showers, we have ancestor worship holidays at the same time. Pretty much goes hand in hand. So a lot of ancestor worship happening at this time of year. But what else? From the notes, from the workbook. We have Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year, Yom Kippur and Sukkot from our Jewish friends and ancestors, as I said, because this is New Year's for them. During the late July and into August, for our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors, we have a New Year's there. And then here, basically at the same time, or sometimes a little later into the season, this year it's going to be later into the season, we have Navratri and Diwali, which are the Hindu New Years that take place at this time of year. They have multiple New Years, but they have a New Year at this time of year that represents walking into the dark half of the year. Lots of lantern lighting festivals at this time of year. And then the two holidays and holiday collections that I think, well, after the the harvest festivals, clearly a big deal during Mabon season, right? Again, if you go to a bookstore and you pick up any book about the Wheel of the Year, they're going to go on and on and on about harvest, harvest, harvest at this time of year. But there's other stuff happening because we're going into the dark. We're going into the underworld with this holiday as well. And so one of the other things that you will see at this time of year is breaking down holidays. As we approach Samhain, as we move through Mabon season and we get closer and closer to Samhain, we begin to see a lot of festivals and celebrations dedicated to the idea of order, or the natural process, the natural world beginning to unravel, come apart, break down, fall apart. And that is encapsulated for me in holidays like Thesmophoria from our Greek friends and ancestors, which is a 3-day bitching festival that ladies, women, femmes would engage in. They leave town. They leave libido subduing herbs in their bed for their male counterparts. They're like, no, absolutely not. Have some saltpeter. Get away from me. And they go camp out in the woods for 3 days and eat and drink and fart and fight, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But it's a breaking down of the natural order as far as the Greeks were concerned. And we also have a day dedicated to Eris, the goddess of chaos, who is, of course, Ares's twin. But we have a holiday for her around the end of Mabon too. So think again about that transition thing, right? We're shifting forms. We're going from this very solar, bright, conscious world thing through this moment of abundance, but then into the dark. And to me, the festival, the myth cycle that tells that story best is the Eleusinian Mysteries. The Eleusinian Mysteries were a very, very, very big deal for the people that participated in them. You had to participate in them at some point in your life. It was more or less compulsory. And nearly everyone was invited to participate. Status made no difference. Country of origin made no difference. Gender made no difference. You just had to speak Greek and couldn't be a murderer. Otherwise, you were welcome to attend. And I'm sure they helped out with the Greek part. So I think it was really just the murderer thing that they were very concerned with. And the Eleusinian Mysteries has multiple parts to it throughout the year. It was very normal for people to attend lesser mysteries in spring, and where they would learn the movements, they would learn the ritual parts, they would learn what to say when they got certain prompts, and they kind of got like a rough walkthrough of what it was that they were going to do. But even then, those people wouldn't attend until the following year. They wouldn't attend in the same year. It would take a whole cycle and a half before they would attend. Um, there are other, like, lesser festivals that kind of connect to it, and you were encouraged to kind of do the whole circuit. Um, and as much as we do know about the Eleusis mysteries, the mysteries of Eleusis or the Eleusinian mysteries, there's so much we don't know. It was kept under lock and key. You were not allowed to talk about this festival after you attended it. Now, modern archaeologists, modern historians, being able to cobble together the little bits of clues that we have around this festival, um, believe that this was an initiatory practice that helped initiate people from childhood into adulthood. Some of what was going on there, and some of what was going on was potentially teaching people how to grow grains, how to grow grain crops. Also, perhaps some of what might have been taught was how to cultivate or avoid ergot growing on your grains. Now, who cares about ergot? Everybody cares about ergot. Ergot is the organic root of a chemical you might know currently as LSD. And what happens when ergot grows on the grain and nobody knows it, and then the entire village is making bread out of that grain? The witch trials. That's what happens. So, definitely a type of party, but make sure that you're ready for that type of party. So we don't know for sure. I want to say that too. These are hypotheses on the part of scientists who know way more about this stuff, or historians and researchers that know way more about this stuff than I do. But these are some of the guesses that people are making. It was an opportunity to teach people how to grow stuff. It was an opportunity to teach people how to cultivate this very particular fungus or avoid it, or both. As well as it being a witnessing of the miracle of Earth growing this stuff. So folks would go on this multi-day trip. We're going to go over all of the details of this stuff in the weekly podcast, by the way. But they would go on this multi-day trip. They had to walk from their town to the main, the town that had the main headquarters, the main ritual temple center. And then from there, everybody walked down to the beach where they bathed a baby pig who was later utilized as an offering to a deity. Sorry, vegans. And that baby pig, we are going to see again in other rituals throughout the rest of this year and next year as we approach spring. So we're not done with little baby pig. TBD, to be continued with baby pig. But then these folks engaged in this multi-day festival where they would fast, and they were given, just a little bit of drugs. And in particular, the drink that they were served was kikion. Yay, thank you, Lindsay. The drink they were served is kikion. We have a lot of recorded recipes for kikion, so if you can get the parts, wink wink, you can make kikion today. And it starts with soaking barley in water. So boom, right at the root of it, grains, which we've just harvested plenty of, so we have a lot to work with. We want to put some lemon juice in there. We want to put some wine in there. Of course, we want to put some goat cheese in there, because who doesn't love goat cheese in your refreshing end of summer beverage? Greeks, they were wild, man. I don't know what to say. But we then also are going to add some poppy heads. We're going to add some ergot infected grains, and we are going to add some mushrooms. And so here what we see is a carving of one of the main goddesses that oversees this festival complex and this ritual, who is Demeter or Demeter. And you can see in her hands, she is holding grains, she is holding poppy heads, and she's holding snakes. Snakes would have been in that chamber where those baby pigs are thrown and sacrificed. So here is her holding some of the main ingredients of this ritual. But is that all that we put in the Kikion? Absolutely not. There's one more very magical ingredient, and that would be mushrooms. Hi, everybody. Kids, don't do drugs, but if you do, do Kikion. Because this is where it was at. I show this carving every year. It delights me to no end. This is Kor, aka Persephone, and her mother, Demeter, offering mushrooms to each other. Get the fuck out. Are you kidding me? Like, girl, you high enough? Girl, are you high enough? Oh, come on. Kids, this is why you study history. So, one of the things that I love about this is, of course, the mushrooms. The other thing I love about this is how they are illustrated nearly identical. And that is on purpose, because the artist that created this is showing us that Demeter and Persephone are two parts of some other bigger thing. They are facets of the same thing. And so they have a lot of sameness to them. So, in the Eleusinian Mysteries, we are going to go hang out with Demeter and Persephone. We are going to go into some underground chambers. We are going to drink some Kikion. We're going to see some weird shit. We're going to fast. We're going to be sleep deprived. We're chanting. We're dancing. It's a great time. The Greeks, they knew how to party. Let's just say that. And in that, one of my favorite things, I don't think I have it written down, unfortunately. And I wish I did. But one of the few pieces of information that has been found from ancient Greece talking about what they were doing in the mysteries, and this person, if they had been caught, would have been in a lot of trouble for telling this, but they wrote down just one little piece where the petitioner, the pilgrim, the person who is going through the process, walks in, and they say, I have fasted, I have drunk the Kikion, I have witnessed what is in the small basket, I have taken that out of the small basket, put it in the large basket, whence I then put it back in the small basket. Ooh, I mean, come on, right? It's clear as day. No, it's not. We still don't know what was the basket, what was put in the basket, what was taken out, what were they doing. But this festival is a really big deal for our ancient ancestors and our ancient friends in the West, anyways. And while they're here, let's talk about these two for a second, because Persephone is about to go on her underworld journey. So one of the things that we see during this time period that I think is very interesting is the shape changing that our deities go through. Nearly every deity that is identified as a god, masculine, male presenting, whatever, especially if they are a vegetation god, specifically, I guess I should say, if they are a vegetation god, they die at this time of year. And not only do they die, but as I mentioned, like with John Barleycorn, they're literally ground up. They are chopped up into tiny pieces. They are rent asunder. They are obliterated. They're destroyed. And usually those body parts of the god, aka the plant parts, are thrown back into the fields to refertilize them and push that energy back down into the earth, where it's then in spring gonna rise back up again, turgid and erect, right? So we see a lot of vegetation deities literally die off, masculine and male vegetation deities literally die off at this time of year. But we see with a lot of the goddesses, there is either shape changing or a type of an underworld journey. They might take a nap, they might peace out for a second, but they don't die. They recede a little bit. They become a little bit more remote or abstract. or they change shape. And so the goddess that we have been working with turns into this goddess. What are we seeing here at this time of year? We're seeing the mother goddess slowly morphing into the crone, moving forward into the crone aspect. Once the harvest is done, once the delivery of this massive tomato baby and eggplant baby is completely done, boom, we're taking a nap. Okay, I'll be on the couch with my jug of Kiki on. Do not disturb. And then we're slowly turning into the crone. And so here is Demeter and Persephone saying we're all part of the same thing. Our Persephone myth, and if you, apologies, or not really, maybe you enjoy this, to folks who've taken this class with me before, I talk about this every year, but I think it's very important for us to work with this imagery. In the Persephone myth that is handed to us in the modern era, it's really gross, right? Sexual abuse, kidnapping. Hades shows up, sees Persephone, the young, innocent, naive girl, child, Persephone, kidnaps her and drags her down to his underworld lair and has his way with her. And in the meantime, nobody knows where she's gone. And Demeter is losing her mind. Her mother is losing her mind. And says, no more life on Earth. Nobody's having sex. The food isn't going to grow. We're done. We're shutting it down. Goodbye. And the rest of the Greek gods and goddesses are like, whoa, not cool. What do you mean? What are you talking about? What do you mean? You know, that meme, right? And so they send Mercury, a polygendered messenger spirit who has the capacity to travel in all of the realms, to go find out where is Persephone. Mercury already knows. Hermes already knows. But is like, oh gosh, I wonder. So flies down and is like, y'all are in trouble. Like they're not cool with this upstairs at all. And so Hades grabs Persephone and drags her back up to the surface, and there's a big argument that takes place between Hades and Demeter, the husband, the owner, right, and the mother, overseen by the gods. And ultimately, there is a deal struck where Demeter can have her daughter half of the year and Hades gets her half of the year. And life and balance and order is restored once again. Anybody notice what was missing from that story? If you've already heard this, don't answer. But anybody notice what was missing from that story? I'll tell you. After I hydrate myself. Persephone's point of view. What the hello? Does anybody care about what Persephone's opinion is of this circumstance? No. Because that story is handed to us by patriarchy. And that's the story that patriarchy would like to tell around this myth. But if we push back in time, we find older versions of this myth where Persephone, Core, is kicking it in a field of flowers, poppies, hanging out with drugs, enjoying her body, enjoying life. Yep, Persephone. And is on the brink of womanhood. She is a young girl, or she is a young woman who is standing at the threshold of girlhood and womanhood. And she sees that she's changing. She sees that she is evolving. And she is wanting someone to help her cross the threshold and initiate her into adulthood. And so, she's just like, whatever. And here comes Hades, owner of the goth club, as I like to call him. And he's like, what are you doing? And Persephone's like, what are you doing? And so he's like, you want to come hang out with me at the goth club downstairs? And she's like, yeah, maybe, sure, probably. Jumps in the hearse, right? And they head down to Hades. And while they're there, he hands her a dish with food, no thanks. Drinks, no. This, no. That, no. And finally, he hands her a dish with 3 pomegranate seeds on it. Pomegranate, of course, being one of the great symbols of her mother, and goddesses in general. And three, the threefold goddess, three being just sacred to the goddess. And in this offering, he's saying, I know exactly who you are, and I know why you're here. I see you as a divine being. I witness you as an element of this larger deific construct. Let's do the damn thing. And so they proceed to knock sacred boots, as we like to say here in the classes and on the podcast. And she is initiated into adulthood. She, I'm assuming, has a lovely time. They take some Molly or whatever it is that they're into. So, again, don't do drugs, kids, but if you do the kiki on. And so, back up on the surface, same thing. Demeter, distraught, freaking out. Where's my kid? What's going on? Because what parent is excited about their kid growing up? Right? What I mean, and we all parents are and are not at the same time. Every parent wants to see their child become, a fully realized adult, and not at all, right? Like, stay a kid forever. Let me protect you forever. Stay innocent from the world forever. But we can't. That's not how life works, right? We all get initiated into the knowing at some point. And so here's Persephone getting initiated into the knowing. And they come back up to the surface, they have a conversation, and the agreement is struck. Persephone will live half the time with her mom, life on Earth, and half the time downstairs with the owner of the goth club, Hades, where she becomes the queen of the dead, right? She becomes a goddess that oversees the lands of the dead. So she's a maiden goddess, but she's overseeing the lands of the dead. Interesting. So if we push back even further in time, we will find versions of this story where there is no Hades. Hades is Hecate. Doesn't that flip the entire script? Now we have three versions of the same energy by some reckonings, right? Not everybody's in agreement on that, but we have a maiden goddess, we have a mother goddess, and we have a crone goddess. And all of them are doing this incredibly sacred dance here at this time of year. And so depending on which tradition we are working with, we might see Persephone come back from her underworld journey at the end of the Eleusinian Mysteries. We might see her come back at Yule. We might see her not come back all the way until spring of next year. Depends on what tradition we're working with. So her underworld journey can be 3 days, or it can be 6 months, or any point in between there. So in talking about that, I just want to briefly bring up the Inanna Ishtar underworld journey, because it is a very similar story. Well, ish. It's the older version of this story. And in that story, Inanna Ishtar goes on this underworld journey. And we're going to talk more about this in the Samhain class, but when she reaches the bottom of her underworld journey, she meets her twin sister. Now, isn't that a trippy metaphor to work with in the midst of all of this? Why am I going so far afield with all of this myth? It's interesting to know, but what's the point, right? It's this, that we are about to embark on our own personal underworld journey. And in many ways, it's going to kick our asses, as it does every year. We're going to be encouraged or challenged to mature in some ways. We're going to have to leave some things behind. We're going to have to watch some parts of us change shape. We're going to have to watch some parts of us go dormant for a while. And in that, we'll have to utilize some other pieces of ourselves to get through the dark half of the year. But all of this stuff can really trigger a lot of the animal that's in us, and a lot of the parts of our biology and our psychology that are lizard brain, that are animal brain, that are deep, deep in there, because we're watching the light die. We're watching the cold come on. We're watching the food slowly dwindle. The animals have stopped breeding. Like, what's going on, right? The natural world is unraveling. It's undoing itself. The natural order is failing and falling apart. And even though we can logically understand that from an intellectual point of view, right? I've got electric light, I've got heat, I've got multiple grocery stores directly across the street. I'm not under any threat. Bring on the winter. But the animal in me that's lived on this planet for millions and millions of years is like, oh my God. Oh no. The animal in me, see, even there, like freak out, right? The animal in me is like, what's going on? Why is it getting darker? Where's the food? What's happening? And again, logically, we might be understanding what's happening to us, but the illogical parts of us don't necessarily understand. And this is where our shadow work begins to present itself, is at this time of year. And that's partly because a lot of us spend more time alone. We spend more time inside. We spend less time doing stuff out there with those people and more time in here with by ourselves or with less people. We have more time on our hands often during winter in the northern hemisphere. And it's a great time for reflection. But if we haven't been dealing with what's going on in here, that could be very ooky and very spooky. And so all of a sudden, my beautiful underworld journey where I get to go meet the owner of the goth club has suddenly turned into I'm plagued with all of these horrors of stuff that I haven't been dealing with. Oh my God. This is why I don't want to be alone. This is why I don't ever want to be by myself, because I can't stand to hear myself think. I can't stand being alone with my own thoughts for 5 minutes. Clearly you need to be. Lovingly, respectfully. And this is the beginning of that multi-month process. And so in whatever way we can kind of get ourselves dialed in with that, settled in on that work, awesome. And these goddesses and their underworld journey trip has a lot to teach us about that kind of stuff. Okay. We've spent a lot of time on that stuff. We're going to move on to some other things now. So thank you for staying with me. If you're still here, I appreciate it. Queen of the tangents. That's what I do. So, these are the constellations that the sun is passing through at this time of year. Passing through Virgo, passing through Libra. Remember, for folks who are working tropical astrology, which is the majority of us here in the West, we are done with Virgo and the sun is now in Libra. If we look up in the sky at what is physically happening, the sun is still in fact, it has just entered the space of the sky that we think of as being the Virgo constellation. Virgo energy and Libra energy abound throughout this season. Thanks, Pagan. Abound throughout this season, and in my opinion, Virgo is a type of energy that like clears the way and holds the threshold open for Libra and Mabon season and fall to sort of enter. Virgo is literally depicted as a maiden lying on her back, and in her hands she has grapes in one hand and she has grain in the other. So exactly the stuff that we're working with at this time of year. Also, I don't know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but there's a deity, there's a god out there that does this thing with like crackers and wine. I'm sure it's totally unrelated. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, right? That can't possibly be the same thing. Okay, anyways. So that's Virgo. And then Libra has been depicted as two different things. Libra in the modern era is a scale. And a scale at this time of year is very apropos. On one hand, the scale represents that equal night, equal day thing, right? The balance and then the tipping of the balance. But we also are working with a scale because folks are literally weighing out their grains. They're literally weighing out, what has come in from the harvest and who gets what and who gets how much and all of that good stuff. Scorpio is on the other side of this. And so we go Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, or I guess I should do it this way. Sorry. I always get this backwards because it's mirrored from what I'm doing. But we go Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. And the stars that we think of as connected to Libra have been connected to Virgo at certain periods of time, and they've been connected to Scorpio at certain periods of time. So there have been eras where there was no Libra. That was not a constellation. That portion of the sky was divided up between one or the other. Virgo is one of the largest constellations in the sky. Scorpio, also pretty big. So we have little tiny with giant on either side. I want to give you this image, though. Thinking about Virgo, the maiden, Libra as not the scales, but the other thing that it shows up as, and Scorpio on the other side, which I didn't say this. Libra, depicted as scales a lot of the time, also depicted as a lamp some of the time. And so think about this. Here are the tarot cards that are connected to Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And I'm giving you two different versions of this to work with. Here's Virgo holding up a lamp. Get out of here. And then Libra holding a set of scales, and then Scorpio on the other side, which, is literally sort of death, right? That's our Samhain season. But look at this. Look at. So note for Scorpio, all the way over there on the left-hand side of the graphic there, where a crab is and Deshuba, that's the front of Scorpio. So Scorpio, in a sense, is riding backwards, right? The back of Scorpio is pointed the other direction, where the E is, that's east. And then look at this tarot card again. See, there's Virgo facing one direction and Scorpio, or the death card, facing the opposite direction, with Libra in the center. If we think of, so here's Libra as the scales, but if we think of Libra as a lamp or a light, we literally have Virgo holding the lamp up here, and then we have the sun card, or the strength card. Now, in some magical traditions, Libra is connected to justice. In other magical traditions, Libra is connected to the strength card. If you've worked tarot, you have come across this. We don't have time here to talk about why Libra is assigned two different cards, but we're just going to play with the imagery. So we have Virgo with the lamp up here, and then we have Libra with the solar energy attention here, and then Scorpio with the solar energy all the way down, almost on the ground. So you can literally see the descent of the sun in these three cards. Pretty cool stuff. Witches, man. We're doing all kinds of cool shit. I'm telling you what. But here are our constellations. Now, what I think is very cool, thinking about all of our birthing imagery and delivery imagery of the harvest in Roman tradition, Hecate and another goddess were seen as the two goddesses that held the threshold on either side of a baby being born, basically life and death. Ancient Egyptians had a very similar thing with Neith and Isis, where they were, or Nephthys and Isis, where they literally were the gates of life and death that you passed in between. And in ancient Roman civilization, when somebody was giving birth to a baby, you would have one person hold on one side and one person hold on the other, and another person would hold up a lamp between the person's legs to guide the baby out of the darkness and towards the light. Is that something that we're seeing here in this collection of constellations? I don't know, but that's a cool thing to think about, right? Again, this is one of those places where, like, have I just gone crazy because I've been swimming in the symbolism for far too long? Or, is there something there? Pretty cool stuff, right? And even if it isn't actually there, we can imagine that it is, and we can work with the metaphor, as we say a lot on the podcast. We can work with the imagery if we choose to. So, as we are moving through these constellations, we are also, where do I want to go next? Here we go. We have our full moons and our new moons, and we've got some astrology that we're going to have to wrangle with every year. This is your sky guide. I'll leave that up for a moment so you can take a screenshot if you like. But this is something that is for patrons. And and I'm gonna play with my hair, I guess, just for a second. I just for a treat. Needed to play with my hair. It's Libra season. Hello, thank you. Please. Um, so as you can see, we've got three different meteor showers, right? We've got the Taurid meteor showers that run from September to December. We've got the Orionids that run from October to November. And then in the midst of all of that, the Draconids that only roll for like a week or so, but they're still pretty potent. We see on September 17th that the sun moves into the constellation of Virgo for our sidereal astrology friends. That's the astrology that matches the astronomy. September 22nd, the sun moves into Libra for those of us that practice Western astrology. And then September 29th, we're going to have our first full moon of fall. This is the harvest moon. The full moon that is closest to the fall equinox is always traditionally called the harvest moon. It's one of two moons that are named for an event throughout the year, and the next full moon is by default the hunter's moon, and that's the other moon that's named after an event. So we have our meteor showers. October 4th, Mercury moves into Libra. I don't talk about the other planets necessarily a whole lot. It's something that I'm changing as I go throughout the years of doing this stuff, because I get bored and I need to change it up sometimes. But while we're moving through Libra, Venus will enter Libra and Mercury will also enter Libra. So we're going to have some Venus energy. Venus loves hanging out in Libra. Very happy there. Mercury, pretty cozy in Libra as well. Air sign, air planet. But we will have that added energy this season. That's not going to be true every year, but it is true this year. And then we will have some heliacal risings. We'll talk about all of that stuff in the podcast. Our first new moon of fall is October 14th, and that comes with eclipse season. So Mabon is also carrying us into the eclipse season window. And when we think about the combination of the astrology and the astronomy here, we are being asked to do a little bit of extra work in Mabon season. We're going to have our new moon solar eclipse October 14th, and then October 28th, we have our full hunter's moon at 5 degrees of Taurus, which is also a partial lunar eclipse. So there's the pair, right? Eclipses always come in pairs. They're always the full moon and the new moon, or the new moon and the full moon, however that falls. But they always come in pairs. And so this opens the process. And so, again, Mabon season this year is asking us to do some extra work on this new moon and on this full moon. There's going to be some extra calling in of energy, some extra letting out or processing and letting go of some energies. Again, we'll talk about this more in the weekly podcast, but just be aware that Mabon season is carrying us through eclipse season. So things might be revealed that are a little surprising. There might be some resources that we expect to have access to that we momentarily do not have access to. Usually, that type of stuff is temporary when it's indicated by an eclipse, so don't freak out. But this is a tough time in the year biologically to have a moment like that, right? Thinking back to like that lizard brain stuff of like, oh no, where's the dark? Where's the heat? What's going on here? Why is it getting cold? Why is it getting so dark outside? Like, what's happening with that? And then to have a moment where resources that we thought we were going to have access to, we maybe don't have access to. Just be kind with yourself and be kind with the people that are around you in Mabon season. There's a big emphasis in this season of sharing our resources and sharing our abundance. And that can be very difficult if we think we're in a moment of scarcity, or if we are in a moment of scarcity. So just witness those types of challenges if they come up for you. So that's what's up with this stuff. And I'm going to read a little bit out of the book. In Libra, we seek a balance between who we are in the bright and dark halves of the year. We also seek balance in our relationships, our contacts. We look for beauty, and not so much structure. We've had enough of the earth stuff, thank you, after Virgo. We hone our diplomacy over the bright half of the year, and now we kind of get to flex it here at Libra season. And so when we are hanging out with the. Actually, let me go here and let me do that. When we are hanging out with our moons during Libra and during Mabon season, we're going to have a full moon in Aries and a new moon in Libra. And so and this is the order that they come in this year. So for our full moon in Aries, this moon asks us to find something meaningful to fight for, and to consider all that there is to fight for in this world, right? Aries wants to be the noble warrior. And what does it look like to be a fierce and loving warrior even when you have to go it alone? In what ways can you participate in turning swords into plowshares? Is another piece that we might focus on during this season. And then for our new moon solar eclipse in Libra, way out in the middle of October, where did you learn the difference between right and wrong? That's one of the funky things that we can struggle with and argue with ourselves with during Libra season is harmony and diplomacy and keeping it cute over authenticity and making things awkward because a point needs to be made or somebody needs to get told something that they need to get told. Libra wants to default to just keeping things cute and harmonious. And so our challenge during Libra is to think about, where did we learn right and wrong? Where do we compromise ourselves? And, in what way is it appropriate for me to rock the boat or keep the harmony or whatever? Seeking the balance between differences, between right and wrong, while walking a fine line between salty and sweet. For me, there's simply too much synchronicity between Mabon and Virgo to ignore. So, this is part of why I've been going on about Virgo so much. Summertime Virgo is where we shift gears from the intensity of summer to the recline of fall. We hermitage, getting back to the daily routine. And now, with only a little warning, the wheel has turned and summer is ending. Now is a great time to do some tending to the house, to begin putting away the elements of summer and getting ready for the approach of fall. The other half of Virgo season that leads up to Mabon, which is where we are right now as I'm teaching this class and, the next couple of days, it's all Mother Goddess energy. Priestesses in service of the natural order. Our fruits are ripe and heavy. Our branches sag a little bit with effort. Depicted belly heavy, laying on her back, legs spread, holding palm fronds and grains in one hand and fruit and grapes in the other. One of the largest constellations in history, Virgo is the unowned creatrix mother goddess. And sometimes she's depicted holding a lamp, which is Libra. Mabon comes with a celebratory momentum that is buoyed by both the incredible abundance being produced by the natural world and our knowledge that we head into growing darkness. We light the lamps instead of cursing the dark, feeling excited and stimulated by the encroaching change. At the equinox, the shift that has been growing becomes even more obvious. But if we really want to, we might ignore it for a few more weeks. Libra and Mabon season have a party atmosphere, though it's more subdued than the last couple of seasons. Because it's focused on abundance, it's enough to distract us from the personal work that we could be doing to get ready for the coming shift. For now, anyway. So There's a little bit of the struggle that we have astrologically as we move out of Virgo and into Libra. Virgo season can feel like a real taskmaster season, attending those details, and Libra can feel like a, oh my god, can I take a minute? I just don't care. I just want to hang out. I just want to wear something cute and drink a tasty cocktail. Please, please don't ask me to do anything else. And yet, on the other side of Libra, right, on the other side of Mabon is Samhain and Yule, and we're really heading off into the dark in that moment. So we do want to utilize this time of year to get our shit right and to get ready for it. Okay, so now let's talk about tarot that we might work with at this time of year. This is the Empress card and the Justice card from the Builders of the Adetum deck. I'm a huge fan of this deck. I talk about this deck in my classes all the time. This deck comes blank and you paint it. It has the black and white images. I shouldn't say it's blank. The images are black and white and you paint them. And this is an opportunity for you to develop a really intimate relationship with each symbol and little nuance of detail in the cards. Very cool stuff. Builders of the Adetum, interesting magical group to work with and study with. And so this is the Empress, aka Venus, the ruling planet of Libra, aka Justice. And here are the same cards from the Smith-Waite deck. You might be more familiar with this deck. Fairly similar, not exactly the same, but fairly similar. And these two beings, along with our cards for Virgo, the Magician and the Hermit, really, again, are kind of overseeing our work as we move into and through this season. We hang out with the Empress card, aka Venus, at Beltane, because that season is kicked off, or that Sabbat is kicked off by Taurus. Venus is the ruling planet of Taurus. And so at the beginning of the growth cycle and here at the very end, or just about the very end of the growth cycle, Venus, the Empress, is overseeing both ends of the process, on the way up and on the way down, or in the resolution. And this archetype in this card is surrounded by grains, right? Their abundance is obvious. Their capacity to grow stuff is obvious, but also their capacity to understand seasons, their capacity to understand the zodiac and timekeeping, also here with this character. And on the other side, Justice. Justice holds a scale in one hand and a sword in the other. And the deep argument that we can find ourselves in with the Justice card is an argument between what is fair and what is right. And I have a big piece about this up on my website. If you go to the Mabon page, you'll see it in the top menu. And scroll down on that page, there's lots of information about Mabon there, along with a piece called Fairness, Balance, and Equity, working with the Justice card during Mabon season. So a lot more than what I have time to say here. But the crux of it is, we can find ourselves in a false argument during this time of year with ourselves, with the people around us, when we're thinking about abundance, resources, shared resources, and who gets access, and who doesn't get access, and why we make those decisions. In times like these, and I mean 2023 on Earth, scarcity and paranoia are enforced. We are encouraged to be suspicious of each other. We are encouraged to feel alienated from one another. We are encouraged to hoard our supplies of resources. And part of how that's encouraged is, well, The leftist conspiracy theorist just got reined in. I'm not going to go off on that. But just I think you can get where I'm coming from on this. We collectively are dealing with forces larger than ourselves that really encourage us in being alienated from each other, suspicious of each other, and very covetous of the resources that we have access to. And very much wanting to push away anybody else, right? And in a very real way, when our resources and our supplies are jeopardized or threatened or encroached upon, we can be very defensive around that, right? It feels life and death. It might even be life and death, depending on what we're talking about. Though, in the modern age, that is a relatively extreme thing in the Western world. But we're encouraged to be in that place. And to also have a very harsh black and white sort of line of judgment around what is okay and what is not okay. And the Justice card calls us into focus on this argument, on the tension of this conversation, in that it asks us initially the question of what's right versus what's fair. And I use a very long story to explain what I'm talking about in this card, and I will tell it to you now. Imagine that we live in a world where if you steal something, you're going to have your hand cut off. And you know this, and everybody knows it. It's totally known. You've been warned a million times. Everybody's completely aware. Okay. Well, you are starving. Your family is starving. And you're fed up. Like, you're at your wit's end. You're at the end of your rope. You have tapped out all of your other resources. You've done what you could. There's no food. But several doors down, the baker has just put several loaves of bread out to cool off in the morning air. And you say, fuck it, we're not starving today. You sneak down, you grab a loaf of bread, you bring it back, everybody eats, but you get caught. Now, what's right is that you are not punished for this. What's right is that, you are starving, right? You're not stealing out of malice. You're not stealing out of greed. You're stealing out of survival. And so what would be right is to forgive you for this. Except that's not fair to everyone else who has received this same punishment. You were warned, you knew that this could happen, you chose to do this anyways. And so how on earth is it fair to let you go when all of these other people were not let go? How's that fair to the baker, right? So initially, these types of conversations, these kinds of challenges might be what present themselves when we're dealing with the Justice card, we're dealing with Mabon energy. But there's a deeper conversation here, which is, why is anybody going hungry in a country this rich? We weren't supposed to ask that part, right? And so the deeper work of Mabon is not who gets some versus who doesn't get some. It's, can I push past these false notions of paranoia and alienation and push into some deeper level of connectivity with the community around me, where I'm not relying on the news or social media or the newspaper to tell me what my neighbors are thinking and doing. I'm just going to go talk to them and find out. And they're going to know what I'm doing, and I know what they're doing, and we're interconnected. And then if they need something, I can help them with it if I have it to share. And if I need something, they can help me with it if they have it to share. And we all make it through another winter. Ta-da! So the Justice card is asking us to do a lot of work here. Mabon season is asking us to do a lot of work at this time, of pushing past the surface fears of scarcity and the oncoming darkness, and pushing into where can we be in family with each other, where can we be in community with each other and support each other as we move through dark times. Am I still talking about Mabon? I don't know. Okay. Summer's waning light illuminates facets of our deeds over the year so far. And we would do well to take a moment and try to see what the universe is pointing out. As a species, we have forgotten that we are meant to be window panes that allow the light to shine through. We have forgotten to be the light and to be conductors of the light. We could be stewards for each other and the planet. As we pull in the harvest, we have a chance to pull back and think about our connection and our responsibility to our real personal power, to the future and the present. What is your responsibility for building a better now? And if we all began to consider that and work towards it, what kind of world would we be producing? The last time we hung out with the magician and the empress was during Beltane. At that point, we had just thrown a bunch of seeds in the ground and we were eagerly tending our garden, wondering what could grow. Remember that? Remember us in spring? Remember, right? Reattach to that place that you were at in spring of thinking about what is 2023 going to be like? What is this year going to offer me? Now we have that moment of reflection of looking back on what has happened so far in the year and what can we account from that? What can we accumulate and consider from that? We had no idea at the time what those experiments would turn into or the actions we would have to take to turn dreams into reality. Now we are at the opposite end of that energy, looking over our crops, our results, and we're weighing the efficacy and the morality of our actions. We may be tempted into inaction. Don't rock the boat. Don't look too closely at these situations, or we'll be obligated to help and deal with them. But choosing not to deal with our crap is just prolonging the inevitable. And when we do choose to take action and face our pain, we are changed and molded by it, in addition to becoming active co-creators of reality. Memory is the bedrock in which imagination finds its seeds. However, it is action that turns the wheel. All the actions we take in the conscious world are somehow influenced by the unconscious movements we make, which in turn influence by our experiences and what we take from them. So moving through this season is asking us to think about the past and the future. What did we do? What were the results of that? I'm going to do stuff again. What are going to be the results of that? Am I moving from an alienated, paranoid, scarcity-based place, or is there a way for me to push into and past that into a place that's connective, even in the face of feeling very threatened by forces that are much larger than me? That's all we're doing, just those little things. It's witchcraft, people. I don't know what you want from me. This is what we're focusing on. Okay. So, to wrap it up, Mabon, a season of abundance, a season of harvest, a season of calling in and accounting the results, the effects, the find out part of the fuck around and find out. We are finding out in Mabon. It's a time to reflect on all of that stuff and witness it either in a physical way or in a psychological or a philosophical way. We are we are witnessing the death of the natural world, and we are witnessing how that affects us on a biological and psychological level, physiological level, even if we logically can rationalize what's happening to us. We are leaving the detail oriented fussiness of Virgo. Bless you, Virgos, for getting the laundry folded. And we're moving into a more party atmosphere vibe of Libra, but a party atmosphere that can tend towards, glossing over things just to keep it cute because it's scary outside and we all will need to pretend to be friends. And we are also this year moving into eclipse season during this Sabbat. And so we are going to have some extra work around what are we calling in and what are we processing and letting go of in this season. So when we are, if you are a person, I should say, that likes to build altars or work tables, or you like to have symbols and elements of the Sabbath around your house, either for just one moment of celebration or throughout the entire season, both totally appropriate. We can work with things like cornucopias, scales, images of the setting sun, a sheaf of grain, spirals, and grapes and wine. Grapes and grains, palm fronds and grains and grapes, all very appropriate to cluster everywhere. Making cornucopias and or utilizing cornucopias, basically any kind of a container with a bunch of stuff spilling out of it, cornucopia, we're good to go. And the sheaf of grain is literally one of the pieces from the Eleusinian Mysteries that we do know of, where there was a sacred dish that had a single piece of grain over it with a cloth covering the grain, and at some point the cloth is pulled up and the grain is revealed and then it's covered again. So you might have something like that on your altar. I'm going to come back to, okay. So for your Sabbath celebration, again, if this is a single day event, single day, single night, whatever, or throughout the season, we can work on all of this stuff. Sharing your bounty. That is a great way to push past feelings of alienation or paranoia about having enough. Is where do you have enough to share? And again, that might not be material goods. That might be you sharing wisdom or sharing time, right? Maybe you have an elderly neighbor that needs extra help sweeping their porch. You've got an extra 15 minutes. Done. Everybody's going to be better that day for it. So sharing your bounty. Making wine. Hooray. And wine takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to do its initial fermentation, and it's completely safe to drink after that period, or you can age wine for however long. And so you could make a Mabon wine and drink it at Samhain. You could make a Mabon wine and drink it at Yule, or you could make a Mabon wine and let it age and drink it at one of the other Sabbats throughout the year. But this is a really cool way of bottling up abundance energy, is by making a wine or making a brew of some kind that you can bottle and reserve for later. Offerings to trees, in particular trees that produce any kind of nut or any kind of fruit. Divination and shadow work, very, very important at this time. Again, we're crossing over the threshold, so we're checking in with the ancestors, and we're asking them for any help on how did y'all get through this? How did you guys get through the dark? How did you live through this? Excuse me. Purification of self and home. And so this is again, as we talked about it 2 hours ago. I know, it seems like a million years. Thanks for sticking with me. Purification of self, purification of home. Great time period to move the furniture around, right? Because the heaters are going to be turning on soon, and the sunlight is going to be coming in at a different angle. So let's take advantage of that. Do the plants need to get moved? All of that, right? Like, make the adjustments, do the thing, and that can be ritual work. That can be a celebratory thing. Cleaning up graves. Big deal at this time of year for cultures all around the planet. Lighting lamps on the night of and throughout Mabon season, very appropriate. I will say this in every single class: go take a walk outside, go to the park, go to your local hiking path, Whatever you can do to get out into nature and witness with all of your senses the shift. Smell the air, look at the angle of the sun, look at how much sooner it's setting than it was 3 months ago. Look at the colors of the leaves on trees. All you witness the distance or witness the differences that are occurring. Distance, sure, that too. Meditation and solitude. This is definitely something that I recommend during Virgo season, and we are in the last days of Virgo season. We just had the Virgo new moon. So if you haven't already taken an opportunity to have a hermitage, do it. But also very appropriate during Mabon season as well. Atonement, and that's a word that has a lot of baggage, but or it can have a lot of baggage, I should say. But we can work with this idea in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that we can work with this is as we move towards the dark half of the year and we move towards our underworld journey, to think to ourselves, is there anybody I can forgive? Is there anybody that I can give them some kind of forgiveness? And really, I don't want to say it that way, actually, because we're not giving forgiveness to them. We're giving forgiveness to ourselves. We're basically giving ourselves permission to put that person down. And I don't mean like talk shit about them. I mean let them go and stop carrying them and give ourselves peace. And so atonement can be a place where we ask for forgiveness from people and we grant forgiveness to other people before we go into the dark, right? Did you have a funky conversation with somebody and you want to come back to a feeling of loving harmony with that person? Now is the time before we head into the dark. Did you flake out on somebody and you need to say you're sorry? Go do that now. Did you promise something and you didn't deliver it? Go say something about that. Atone for that. And atonement can look like simply acknowledging what you've done. But also being truthfully apologetic and sorry for it too. Very important stuff. Really, really powerful magic as we head into the dark to have as little as possible to carry with us. Something that I will say in the Samhain class, but I'll say it now too, is if there are devils to be met on the underworld journey, surely they will come from your own heart. And so in whatever way we can clear our heart off and make amends, apologize, do what we can to make whole before we head down and down and down, it makes a difference, kiddos. It really, really does. And so in that, self-care, right? Hand in hand, right? Atoning and saying I'm sorry to other people and then caring for ourselves after that. And collecting seeds. We are collecting seeds all through Lunasa season, and we are also collecting seeds all through Mabon season. We can plant those seeds, but they also can be a magical metaphor for us of accumulating seeds at the moment of deepest abundance and most profound abundance, and then we can use those seeds in our magic later when we are needing to call in the energy of abundance. And then, of course, take up a cause that's important to your community. God damn it, please. Please jump in and help. Okay. A quick prayer. And then we're going to get back to talking about stuff that you can put on your altar. Farewell, O sun, ever returning light, the hidden God, who ever yet remains, now departs to the land of youth, Tir Nanog, through the gates of death, to dwell enthroned, the judge of gods and folks, the horned leader of the hosts of air. Yet, as he stands unseen without the circle, so dwelleth he within the secret seed, the seed of new reaped grain, the seed of flesh, hidden in earth, the marvelous seed of the stars. In him is life, and life is the light of the people. that which was never born and never dies. Therefore, the wise ones weep not, but rejoice. I love that. Thanks, Doreen Valiente. She just had a birthday. Um, oh yeah, our meditations. I'm gonna come back to that. Don't look at that. Okay. So in building your stuff, we've talked about ritual forms. Feasting, feasting, feasting. Can't say it enough. Go visit a farm. Go roll around in the dirt. Anything that is grown locally, anything that is in season locally, 100% the most appropriate food you can have on your table. Don't worry about what the witchcraft books say. You have to have this, you have to have that. No, you don't. What you have to have, as far as I'm concerned, what you have to have is what actually grows locally in abundance where you live. That is what your ancestors would have been putting on their table. Wherever they were in the world, that's what they would have been celebrating with. So you too. But pomegranates, blackberries, corn, plums, wild rice, of course, my ancient ancestors. Squash, migrating fowl. We don't have time to talk about it, but it's a thing. Mushrooms, fermented drinks, fennel, vanilla, olives, etc., etc., etc. All very appropriate for your Mabon altars and festivals. Incense and oils, myrrh, pine, cypress, eucalyptus. Definitely recommend benzoin. Our animal helpers, swans, geese, ducks, deer, antelope, and snakes, all very appropriate helpers to work with at this time of year. Our plant helpers, and we can utilize these as decorations or things that we wear, things that we cultivate, stuff that we harvest at this time, as well as the ones that are safe to eat or drink. Utilize them as food, that's fine too. But anything that's vining, so your pothos plant, stick it on the altar, 100% appropriate. Acorns, orchids, burdock, daisy, Solomon seal, ferns, etc., etc. And again, seeds and seed pods, dried leaves, flowers from indigenous plants and trees. Don't worry about what the witchcraft book says. We bless them. Thank you for your research. But what would our ancient ancestors have used? Whatever was in abundance around them. So the seed pods that are dropping from the indigenous plants that are around you right now, that is what is appropriate for you, my lovely witch, to put on your altar. And our mineral helpers, sapphire, if you can get your hands on it. Raw sapphire, not too expensive, actually. I've got some raw emerald in my ear right now, and I think each of these cost like $30. So they're not, it's money, but it's not bajillions. But bloodstone, granite, jade, iolite, andalusite, all of our moonstones, all opals, all tourmalines, all very appropriate to work with during Libra season, all very appropriate to put on your altars. Okay, so last but not least, I'm going to scooch back. I know we're coming up on time. Here's me. I always go over time. That's my brand. Our meditations for Mabon season, and these are in the workbook as well. The spiral turns inward. In the name of the elder, see a vision of result and outcome. What is that vision? Passion and fear run deep. How do we find balance between the light and the dark? And you are earth, air, fire, and water. See yourself as a balanced being and write a letter to yourself from that place. These ritual practices and these meditations, the prayer from Doreen Valiente as well, all completely appropriate to utilize during a Mabon ritual by yourself or with friends and family. But these are also journaling prompts that you could use again during that ritual if that kind of work feels appropriate, or if you're doing something that's more celebratory and you don't want to stop and have like a deep moment like that. Write these down and come back to them throughout Mabon season and consider them. Consider them during the waxing moon and the waning moon and as the light continues to get darker. And that, my friends, is our Mabon class. That's everything. I'm not showing you all the stuff. I'm looking at all of the other slides I prepared, and I was like, I didn't even get close to covering all of the things because that's just me. So I want to thank you all for attending this class, for hanging out. I want to also thank you for doing this work for yourself and doing this work for your community in whatever way you do it. Even pondering these ideas changes us as people and changes how we move in the world. And so taking time to challenge yourself in these ways and consider these things, especially in the darkness of Mabon and especially in the darkness of life on Earth right now. Stuff is frustrating and pretty scary. And again, we have a lot of reasons to not connect with each other, or we're told that we have a lot of reasons to not connect with each other. But no human has done it alone. We've all been doing this collectively the whole time. And so I hope your Mabon season is wildly abundant. I hope it's totally ridiculous. I hope you have a bunch of really great parties with your friends and family and your community. I hope that you can see the richness in yourself. I hope that you can see yourself as the biggest source of abundance that you have, and your skills and your wisdom that you carry in this lifetime. Yeah, thanks, guys. Blessed be. All right, that's the official end of the class. I probably won't edit it, but I always like to tell myself I'm going to. So now let me look at chat. What have you guys been saying over here? Tangents are welcome. Yay, good, because we went on several of them. It's possible to have more of them diverse multicultural. It's like when someone is getting ready to pass into the next life, they want to connect with everyone and clean up any past issues. That is a great way to think about it, Lindsay. That's a great way to think about it, right? And in a sense, we are. In a sense, we're leaving an old form of self behind and we're moving into a new form of self. And so there is that, right? Like, can I clean my slate? Can I tidy up a little bit before I take off? Can I leave it better than I found it? That stuff. Sarah Marie, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Sarah Marie. Really appreciate you. Lindsay, thank you so much. Appreciate that you're here. Patty, mwah, I miss you. Miss P in the house. Miss P, OG, Patty Gallagher in the house. Everybody, major hitter over here. Every year is like a whole life. That is also another really cool and interesting way to think about this. Every year is like we get to visit all the parts of ourselves all the way around. And in that, isn't there a little bit of a release? Like, I'm going to get to do this again. I don't have to get it perfectly right this time around. I just got to do what I can this time around. I got to get it as close as I can, right? I got to work. I've got to try. But I'm probably not going to get it all. And I'll get another chance next year and the next year and the next year. In theory, right? All right, my dears. Love you so much. Thank you so, so much for joining me. And you know where to find me. Social media, website, Patreon. If you haven't already, liked the video, please, you guys have been commenting out the wazoo. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. If you have any questions about this class, any comments about this class, if you find something that I got egregiously incorrect and you are willing to take the time and put forth the effort to write me an email about what I got wrong and how I could do it right next time, I'm so appreciative. You can always contact me through my website. Sometimes it takes me a couple days, but I do check my email. And again and again and again, thank you so, so much to all of my completely insane patrons. I barely can fit all of the names on here now. I'm freaked out. I'm freaked out, like, officially. I'm freaked out officially. Thank you so much, patrons. You guys make this possible. Very cool stuff. All right, my dears. Mwah. Blessed be. Happy Mabon. See you in the fields.